You're listening to Heart of the Matter, where we dive deep into the heartbeat of the Hart District. Our mission is simple: to create an environment where every student is seen, supported, and inspired to excel. Because at Hart, opportunity lives here. Join us as we explore the stories, the people, and the pathways that make our district a place where students truly thrive. Now let's get to the heart of the matter.
Well, welcome to Heart of the Matter. This is the Hart District's first podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. We are starting this podcast. We want to have more of another communication device for our Hart families and our community, and also look at some of our programs and our people a little more in depth. I'm your host, Mike Vierra. I'm the superintendent of the Hart School District, and wanted to give a little bit of background about the Hart School District before I get to introduce our two great guests here today. Hart District, I think a lot of people know, but we're grades 7 through 12 throughout the Santa Clarita. We have 17 school sites, about 20,000 students, and really have a tradition of excellence academically, athletically, the arts, career tech. We've been recognized by World News Report and Advanced Placement, and over the last few years, we've doubled our students that have completed career pathways. And just recently, even our Junior Air Force ROTC program at Valencia High School received the highest marks. So a lot of great things going on in our school district. And the real reason I bring that up and the real reason I'm leaning into that is because the reason for those things are the outstanding people we have and the staff we have throughout our schools. And we thought, what better way to start our podcast series than with two of our most decorated and employees or staff members of the district, our two teachers, California Teachers of the Year. And I'll get into that before I introduce you, and I'm going to stop talking. But we've got from Saugus High School, social studies and construction teacher and AP teacher, Mr. Jim Klipfel, and from Valencia High School, Mr. Casey Cuny, honors English, mythology, also both of them, as I said, California Teachers of the Year. And how that starts is each of our schools, each year we have a school teacher of the year, then we have a district teacher of the year, and then we enter our district teacher of the year into the county program. And among 80 districts, there are county teachers of the year selected. So both Jim and Casey were county teachers of the year. And then they move on to the state. And then that's where it really is so impressive that the Hart District has had two California Teachers of the Year. I think Jim was 2021. Casey 2024. And just to give that a little perspective, in California, I looked it up with AI, that we're going to talk about a little bit later, but there's almost 300,000 teachers in the state of California. So it's just so impressive that in one district over the last 5 years, there's been two state teachers there, and we'll get into that a little bit. But to start off now, I've talked so much. I want to let you both introduce yourselves, maybe give a little bit of your background and how you got into teaching. Mr. Klipfel, Jim, can we start with you?
Sure, absolutely. I was born in Omaha, excuse me, and my family moved out here in the early 70s, and I won the lottery. I got to go to school in Southern California and go to the UC system, and I think I figured out around 12 or 13 that I got a real high out of helping kids that were either bullied or were struggling in school. And so as I got into the university, I knew I wanted to be an educator and I wanted to challenge people while you sort of give them a loving nudge towards their dream. And I was fortunate enough to get hired in the district, and it's just been a great experience since.
Well, thanks. And I have firsthand experience. Both my sons been in your class.
That is correct.
And I know you do push them. And they're both very different people, but you were at the top of their list for teachers. And so I have firsthand knowledge there with that. Casey, tell us a little about your background and how we got here today.
Yeah, so I grew up in Colorado, born and raised up in the mountains near Vail, Colorado. And my path to teaching really started actually because of a tragedy, I guess you could say, that occurred. I was 13, I had bone cancer, so I'm a teenage cancer survivor. And so through that time period, my teachers were so instrumental, really, truly. And Mr. Ortiz, who came to my house to teach me history and through all of that, and then everyone in the aftermath. And so I actually went off and got a business degree and came to LA with a job in marketing at one of the studios, and I was miserable. And there's a kind of a weight that sits on your shoulders when you're a survivor in that way. And I felt like I needed to do something more to give back. And when I kept thinking back on it, I just kept thinking of my teachers, who were just so impactful on my life. So I started subbing at Van Nuys High, and then I got hired. And so I started down in the Valley, and then I moved up here about 3 years into my career, luckily, and started with the Hart District. And same thing, I haven't looked back, and so grateful and absolutely love it. And my kids went to school through this district as well.
Yeah, and what a calling. You both, I know, touch on just having the impact that teachers have had on you and just wanting to help others too. So that's something that's commendable, and we can see it when we're in your classrooms. Can we talk a little bit about the California Teacher of the Year process and how that went for you with the experience? And maybe Casey, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Jim here.
Yeah, it's a wild process in the state of California. I love how they do it. You don't self-nominate. You're selected by your school, which is an incredible honor and humbling. And then you get thrown up to the district. Then that occurs. Then all of a sudden you're asked to write 7 very long essays. The whole package ends up being like 25, 30 pages you have to write to submit.
We almost feel bad. But here's the good news: you're Teacher of the Year, and here's your homework assignment.
Yeah, and I had so many people say don't do it, but I honestly, my wife was instrumental, and she was like, you need to do this to show the boys that when this opportunity comes your way, you're going to just give it your all no matter what. And so I devoted a lot of time to that and wrote those. But it was such an enriching process, really, and I'm sure you probably echo it. That it's like reflecting over your whole career and thinking of all the things you've done. You forget all the things you've done. And again, to kind of put that down was amazing. And then I never thought anything would come from it. And then suddenly it was LA County. And then after that, I thought, well, nothing's going to happen after this. This is just an incredible thing. I got to go to a Clippers game. But then it just kept going. And then eventually the state comes and watches you teach for an entire day, pretty much, which was really incredibly stressful. All these former California Teachers of the Year are in your room watching you for an entire block and then interviewing you after. And then there were numerous Zoom calls. I mean, it's a really long process. And then eventually my cell phone rang on a Friday afternoon and I answered it. And it was Superintendent Tony Thurmond telling me that I was selected. So,
that's awesome. What was the thing you most enjoyed about the process?
I mean, there were all sorts of perks. Obviously, going to the White House for a state dinner was just incredible, and going to the Natty down in Georgia was incredible. But truly, it was the relationships. Like, I have a friend in every state, I feel like now, and I'm close with all these people, and they were the most incredible, brilliant, dedicated people I've ever met. All these other state teachers of the year, and so it's wild because you think of it as just this award and event in a way, but it really just starts this whole new chapter now of, you have a platform in a way and you feel responsibility to that.
Yeah.
But really the friendships with all these other teachers and with Jim here, as we've kind of bonded in our California Teacher of the Year family, has been really really a rewarding thing, I would say.
Well, I know it catapulted you in a certain area we'll get to in a few minutes, but Jim, tell me about your experience going through this process.
Yeah, mine was quite different because we had a tragic shooting on campus. It followed shortly by the COVID stay-at-home teaching situation. I was a reluctant recipient of it, and I think there was a mix of imposter syndrome and, a lot of guilt and recovery that the staff and the students were going through. And we had a coming together as a staff from December to March that was just unbelievable, of a situation of just love and support in that community. And then it got shut down because of the COVID situation. Yeah. So by the time I was informed of this and then started going through the process, I think there was some frustration that I was dealing with as many of us were recovering and going through it in complete isolation. And then by the next year, when we were teaching online again, I had to go through the process and be observed online. And there were a lot of technological issues with the process. And then again, when you add that imposter syndrome but the reality was, as I got further in the process, I started getting a lot more stressed about it because as it started, maybe Casey had the similar situation, that at first, it's just a throwaway, like, this isn't going to be me. This happens to real impressive teachers, not me. And then you somehow make one step and then the next phase. And then pretty soon you start thinking, wait a minute. And for me, it was a real sense of stress that, hey, Saugus High School in this community, in this district, might need this right now as we were going through that. So then it became even more stressful of going through each level and interview and stuff like that. And eventually they had the final set of interviews where they chose the 5 and then the one that would represent us. And I remember they told us, hey, we'll get back to you within 2 weeks. And 2 weeks came by and 3 weeks came by. And at that point, I was just frustrated. And I remember emailing some people at the district saying, I think this ends here. And I was on the pool deck and we were still dealing with separation with COVID. And my little flip phone rang and I saw the area code up in Sacramento. And I still remember it wasn't me at my best. I flipped it open and said, this is Jim. What can I do for you? I don't normally take calls in the middle of workout. And, you know, as you expressed, it's suddenly the superintendent's office. And I had to sit down and I started weeping. Remember, we had been isolated.
Yeah.
So I broke some sort of protocol and gave Krista Botten, my colleague with the swim program, a hug. And then there was the stress about who can you tell because they want, but at that point it was just, wow, maybe I can be a great representative for this community and school. So I had a really unique situation. I also got to go to a lot of really neat things. And I agree with Casey that the best part of it was the relationships. It's almost like suddenly you're at the UN. You know, you have people from, you know, American Samoa and all these other places. And suddenly, you know, your phone has a number from some amazing educator in all these states. And my cohort, we still meet every summer. So this has become lifelong connections for me. And I'm so blessed that I had that opportunity. But it was both joyful and intensely stressful, for better or worse.
Well, let me tell you, I mean, you're both fantastic ambassadors for not only your schools, the Hart District, but the field of education. And that's why we wanted to do this podcast. Really, you know, you hear the name and, you know, you hear Teacher of the Year, but really get down to the people. And that it's not just, like you said, an award contest where you won something. It's a process. And it's also, you know, you're really representing, and especially you, Jim, what came out of the Saugus Strategy Day, really carrying that on your back. And it was a positive for that school site and that community. So, I mean, you know, thanks for sharing that.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
It's a heavy topic.
It is a heavy topic, and I think it's good for people to hear that. And I appreciate you sharing that. Shift a little bit on that, keeping the same way though. Now that you've both come out of the Teacher of the Year process and you've got these connections, has it changed your teaching at all? Has it taken you a different path because of that experience? That's just an open question to if anybody would like to jump in.
Well, I think we joked about this. I don't know if I should say this in front of my boss here, but I felt like I was my worst teacher the year I got it because I was never here. I was constantly getting pulled out and whatnot. But in many ways, that imposter syndrome is so real, and you think like, what? And so for me, it's just really I'm just doubling down on trying to be the best teacher I can be, because now it's like, wow, you know, I got this title I've got to like live up to here. I got to like, you know, make it happen. So I joke around with the kids. Like I forgot to write the homework on the board, and I go, Teacher of the Year, give me a break. And they're all laughing, you know, because it does, you know, it is a responsibility. You're representing your school, your state now. But yeah, I think it's just kind of another thing too. It's just for me, at least personally, you know, it just really is, you know, because as a teacher, every summer I would always wonder, okay, should I be doing more or something, you know, as all my college friends have gone off in business and done whatever. And then the societal pressures of like, this has been wonderful in the sense that it just affirmed that, no, I'm where I need to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I'm just going to kind of keep doing what I'm doing and give it the best I can. You know, so that's been kind of my journey.
Well, I'm going to confirm that. I mean, you think about it, you have a minimum of 150 students, maybe a lot more than that probably. I mean, the impact of that and then ripples that go out beyond that is, I mean, when you think about it that way, is incredible. Jim, anything come out of that as far as your instruction or teaching or how you approach things?
I think the whole humbling experience that we've been talking about, that imposter syndrome sort of weighs on you at first. Yeah. And then there's a humbling of it where, hey, you come out of that. And I agree, it's so stressful that year that you're going through it, because I also felt like it was the worst year of my teaching. And there's a sense of hypocrisy in that stress. But the humbling thing for me was, hey, it's just me. You know, I was just this guy swinging away, trying to make a difference in these kids' lives and on this campus. And there are so many rock stars at Saugus High and so many rock stars in this district that it's a daunting situation to feel like, hey, it's still just us. You know, we still put our, pants on one leg at a time, and there's not the ego. If anything, it's the other way around of, as he was saying, both students, staff, others, like, I still make mistakes every day. I still have to double my efforts to keep growing, but it gives you that grounding and humbling of, all right, deep breath. Every day is a new adventure. Every day I'm going to make mistakes. And maybe if there's anything I've learned from this, it's the ability to reflect that even the people we met that are rock stars are still struggling. And maybe it's a crass expression, but some days it's like getting kicked in the crotch, and you just like, boom, I don't care if you've done it 20 years or 40 years, you got to retool for a new student population or whatever challenges are facing us. And it's given me a boost, but it's also been a burden in that sense. And I'm not saying like, woe is me, but it's a lot to make sure we don't let this district down and to let kids down. And I think he gets it. I don't know if a lot of other people get it.
Well, honestly, I'm getting it more now too. I hadn't realized the responsibility that, you guys are fantastic ambassadors, but I didn't realize how you internalize some of that responsibility. I mean, that's good to know as we move forward with new teachers of the year as well. You kind of mentioned something about retooling for the student population. You both are experienced teachers. I'm not going to say old teachers, but experienced teachers. How have you shifted over the years, or have you shifted over the years? Do you go about things a different way? What's, over your career, what have you kind of changed over the years? And that's open to either one.
I'll jump in. I think the thing that impacted the first half of my career the most was student feedback from student evaluations and reading anything I could get my hands on, especially from the research about brains and learning and psychology. And that helped me work out a lot of classroom management and content, or the content and the delivery. But it's the second half of my career where I think I started teaching more like a coach, the emphasis on a coach of teaching character and stamina and those sort of things that come naturally in those moments that a coach has. Especially, I think the trauma at Saugus really compelled me to start having more intentional mental health moments and life hacks and advice that, hey, this is not an easy time to be 16. This is not an easy time to grow up. You've got 50, 60 years of globalization. It's a competitive time. We also have to be tough. We have to find joy, but we want to set the bar high and find ways to get you over it. And that's where I think that coaching mentality comes in. I'm not going to quit on you, but I won't lower the bar and that sort of thing. So I think I've become more loving, more supportive, more of a coach in the classroom, and at the same time trying to close the gap. I guess the last thing I'll say is that gap, I think somewhere around 2010, when the average high school kid had their own cell phone, has really made a challenge for educators of how do we supplement their increased deficiencies in reading and discipline and focus and those other skills. So we have to work harder to get the same results that we might have gotten before, while they might be more fragile. So we've got to make them tough and close that skill gap at the same time.
Well, I love what you said. I don't want to lower the bar. We're keeping the bar up here, but how we get there may be different. And even the skills you're talking about is going to benefit our students no matter what they do, whether they're going to get a higher degree or go in the field of work right out of the bat or military. It's that, and like I said, the toughness and the hard work and really taking care of yourself. All those things are skills that translate.
And I think it's more rewarding in some ways than ever, but maybe the easiest way to put it the other way is it's also more exhausting. If Casey has a comment on that one.
Yeah, my answer would be that I'm constantly changing. I mean, that's what I love about teaching.
You're never there, right?
You're never there because you can never get to perfection because you're dealing with little humans.
Yeah, and
it's dynamic. I mean, and everything changes constantly. So I mean, I think my teaching's gotten better. I think it's gotten more efficient. But I remember there was at the state teacher thing, and we had to go around the room and say a word that describes great teaching that most people don't know. And the teacher from Wisconsin just leaned into the mic and said, improvisation. And I loved that because I think I've gotten better at that now. When I was early, I was always looking at the clock and making sure I'm hitting those like planned and everything. Now I'm much more attuned to them, and I'm reading them as I'm working through the skill that I'm trying to teach them or get them to master. But to echo what Jim said, yes, it's the dynamics of these kids these days. They are brilliant, and they are filled with anxiety, and it's a combination that is. I mean, you can get them to heights of thinking and producing that is just mind blowing, honestly, in my opinion. But at the same time, you have to get them to emotionally get out of the way to do that. And I think so much of it is the cell phone and also just like the world we're in right now with everything. Just they see it on their cell phone constantly, everything, and in a way that
now.
We just didn't when we were young. You know, I was listening to Nirvana.
Yeah,
you know, I wasn't. I wasn't scrolling through the world news on my phone every day.
I don't think there's any question about their potential. It's more of the challenge of trying to get young people to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's become, it's got to be an arrow in your quiver if you're teaching and working with young people.
Yeah, I agree. And then, so for me, formative assessment and also just realizing that, we're not thinking machines, we're emotional beings that are often asked to think. So helping kids get through that. And then I've had to shift a lot on things too, because I see a real struggle with boys. I see a real struggle with boys right now, just not seeing academics necessarily as something they feel like they can thrive in. And then, so I lean in real hard on Mamba mentality and try to use Kobe as a model.
Yeah.
And again, teaching like a coach. I ended up coaching basketball a few years back, and I definitely influenced my teaching. But yeah, constantly changing. So I love teaching.
And you still know your content and where you want to go, but it's like your strategies now have had to change a little bit getting there. And like I said, the improvisation, you got to know your kids.
Yeah, I was telling them, don't play poker with me. That's all I do all day long for 23 years, just read you. I'm reading you.
Yeah, I think it's really a means to an end, whether you're teaching English or construction or coaching. It's how do we use this challenge, this club or team or class, to bring boys to men, girls to women, young people to adulthood, so they have that lifelong learning desire. They have the stamina, the focus, time management, so they can find that balance of joy and health and happiness, but also a work ethic that is a global market. I need to constantly retool. It's not my enemy, but it's my competitor, and I need to compete because they're hungry.
Yeah.
And they want my place at the university. They want my standard of living. Bring it on.
Yeah.
But we need to instill that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you both said something I want to touch on. Who's ready to go first? Who wants to rest? Who wants to go first?
I'll defer to Jim.
Okay. All right. A good move there. You kind of just said whether you teach English or history or construction. And so I know that it kind of interestingly, you have always been a social studies teacher, correct?
Yes.
As long as I've known you. And
that's what I was when I was honored as Teacher of the Year.
Yeah, and AP, a lot of AP courses. And then the last, 2 years now, you also teach a construction class, which is one of our career pathways and, a great industry. Tell us how that happened and why that happened. And
so some time ago, I'm an avid reader, and I remember reading that this author said a good teacher, can cover the content. A great teacher can inspire beyond that. And then an extraordinary teacher or parent or coach or whatever allows themselves to be impacted by their athletes, their students, and if they're in a club, those kids. And about, 15 years ago, I had a student that said, hey, how do you feel about being an advisor for Habitat for Humanity if we form a club? And I was in this bad place good place, however you look at it, where I didn't say no. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, you're probably not going to follow through with that. So I'll say yes. And sure,
your bet.
Yeah, exactly. So before I know it, I'm in contact with various organizations, and over by Bowman High School in the Hart District office, there's a veterans only community. And so for 10 years, I found myself over there one Saturday a month and a few other days. And we built those homes. We did the drywall, we did the framing, we did the foundations. There's a few things we didn't do, but the organizations that we worked through, Homes for Families and one other one. So I found myself year after year suddenly becoming a hands-on construction guy. and an amateur at that, but nonetheless, leading these kids in the spirit of giving. And the emergence of CTE kind of coexisted with that. And then we had an opening at Saugus where it looked like we might have to shut down what I guess you'd call the traditional wood shop, which we've moved away from. Now it's really a construction-based program. And I just really felt like we can't close this down. This is too great of a facility. And a lot of schools don't even have it anymore. So I just reached out, did a little negotiations, a quid pro quo with the site and district people that I'll do this if. We'll tell you about that later.
You had to put on your Teacher of the Year badge. You're like, hey, go.
Anyways, there was some give and take there. And I went ahead and finished my CTE credential. And before I knew it, 2 years ago, I walked in and I had to reorganize that. And I got some mentors and worked with a good friend of mine, Leonard Freeman, who had worked in that role for a while himself. And every day is a new experience for me. And it's a different clientele. And I'm in a weird situation because I now have career tech students who aren't normally maybe in AP track. And I've got AP kids who are like, hey, what's going on down there? And those worlds are starting to collide, which in my opinion should be.
Yeah, that's awesome.
If you're going to go to med school, are you going to need to hang drywall or pull wire while you pay your way through? And that could be something that ends up taking care of you and your family for the rest of your life. But that's where I'm at right now. And next year, I'm hoping to create the Construction 2 program, the capstone, and really start delivering the goods there. So my guess is when they finally wheel me out in retirement, I'm probably going to be full-time in that capacity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what a great person to have there too. We've been talking for years now about college or career, and then it became college and career. I'm kind of just thinking now it's just career. It's like, what do our students need to do? Because a lot of the skills you talked about in the last question I asked you, all the kind of soft skills, but it's really like the toughness, the grit, all those types of things translate into anything. And so that's, kind of what do you want to do? Let's help you get there, whether it's a very great career in construction or, like you said, you're going to college, either way. So,
yeah, I think one of the big challenges going forward is how do we as a district and the sites configure bell schedules and the day so that young people of different groups with different targets can dabble across these sort of realms that maybe traditionally didn't cross streams. And how do we get creative so that whether they're early classes, late classes, I don't know, but we want to really open up those opportunities.
Yeah. And we control that. It shouldn't be, we have to fit it into our schedule. Let's change the schedule to fit what we want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Casey, I want to talk to you about AI and how did you become the expert? Because you literally are nationally, I see you everywhere. I know we just talked, you were at Boston College, giving a talk, and I see you everywhere. So,
thank you.
It's fantastic.
It's been kind of crazy.
Yeah.
My Indiana Teacher of the Year, Eric, sent me a screenshot the other day. He's like, I was asking ChatGPT about ways to use it in education, and it's citing you. I was like, what?
Did it say Hart District after that?
I don't know that it did. We'll have to work on that.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's hilarious to me because I was like the social emotional learning guy. That's where that was what I wrote about in my California Teacher of the Year application. I was all about SEL, social emotional learning, which really is just to me great teaching.
Yeah.
And then, but I've always been techie. I've always been into tech, and I was doing the iPad when we first got iPads, and I was projecting, and I was in Google Classroom right away. And so I've always kind of been that way. So when AI dropped, I personally just got into it because I wanted to learn about it so that I could help my students. I felt like, wow, this is, and then when I started to see what it could do, I started to quickly realize like, well, this isn't going anywhere. And if I don't teach my kids how to use it or show them ways they can use it for good versus just copy and pasting, which is what most of them think, then I'm kind of doing them I'm really doing them a disservice. So, so it just kind of started that way. And then I started getting invited to go speak various places. I taught myself how to code with ChatGPT. I asked it for a 30-day course to teach me Python coding.
In your spare time.
Right. And I wanted, as an experiment, because I wanted to experience what it was to learn with AI. And then, it's just one thing's led to another. And then OpenAI I ended up meeting some people from OpenAI. And then they asked me to do some talks for them. And then, boom, that led to the Boston College talk. And then I've got a bunch more things. And I'm actually doing something for Google at the end of February up in Santa Clara.
Doesn't get much bigger than that.
So it's pretty crazy. It's really crazy.
You want to do a sneak peek on what we've been talking about, or you need to keep that at wraps?
Oh, sure.
Please.
Well, so I started coding, and that just got kind of exciting, and I started building stuff, and then I thought, you know what, I want, as a teacher, there's always these tech companies out there that come to us and say, well, you're the teacher, like, what do you want in our app? And so I started realizing, like, this is a new world, because I could actually build the app that would be the ideal teacher app. And so that's what I started trying to work on, was just really building the greatest app ever for teachers that could serve as my assistant, not replacing teachers. A lot of these tech companies, I think they think that we don't want to grade. So they're like, oh, we'll do the grading for them. And I was talking with one recently, and I said, that'd be like the coach never showing up to practice and just showing up to games. Like, I don't know what their mentality has been like. I don't know what skills we need to work on. Like, I have to read their work and to grade it. But while it might take me a week and a half to grade a class set of essays with my app Wit from Walt Whitman, if they turn in their essays on Monday, I know what to teach on Tuesday. Even though I'm still going to grade all of them and obviously get through them and get to know them in that way. I instantly have a breakdown of the misconceptions, and then I have a partner in some ways, a thought partner, where I can kind of talk through ideas. So it's been pretty exciting.
That's awesome. It's funny because, we were talking about, hey, I would like you to be on, we're starting a podcast, I'd like you to be on it. And then Casey wants to show me something he's been working on. And I go, this is so funny, because we've been talking to different companies and they have different products, and we really want to, get it down to a quick turnaround and really get, into the hands of the teachers, the formative assessments turning around, and nobody quite has it. And lo and behold, I should just ask somebody. Somebody's figured it out in our district. That's what I should have done in the first place. So we're excited that we're going to be piloting it, or you're going to be piloting it at a couple of our schools. That's going to be awesome. Yeah,
I'm really excited. I have some teachers that are using it and they like it.
Yeah,
I mean, which has been the greatest feedback. That's all that matters, really. But I've been hearing from is that it's helping their teaching. Like, that's the best thing. They're getting ideas. And that's where I see a lot of the benefit in AI. It just becomes a thought partner over here on the side. If you prompt it in the right way,
yeah, it's not going to take over. You still have to think and be able to put the input in and use what you get out of it too.
Yeah, in fact, Anthropic, who runs Claude, one of the big three AIs, just came out with a really interesting study that the level of education of a person actually corresponded with the lexile level and the complexity of the outputs that the AI was giving. It was literally an upward line. And so I've been saying this for a while now, that there's going to be a future where some people have a very smart AI and some people have a dumb AI.
Because it's feeding off what you...
Yes, it's how you talk to it.
Really interesting.
And I tell them, right? And the vocabulary you use, the intelligence you give it is going to give you better intelligent output.
Wow.
And so I watch my students, I'm always telling them, they'll go, make it shorter.
That's why you
give it to me in bullet points.
That's why you're keeping the bar high, right?
Right, but if you say, here's my idea, challenge my thinking.
Yeah.
What are the gaps in my thinking? Where do I need to go learn more about this? You get really good output versus, how's my idea? It's going to say, oh, it's great. It's great. Great idea. But if you push it, you get better output. So that's what I'm trying to teach my kids is to think of it in that way, again, as an aid and a thought partner and a way to learn anything if you ask it the right way and stuff like that.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited about getting that going this semester. Yeah.
Well,
I jotted down a question that I would like to ask you both. Hopefully, we have somebody watching this program. I mean, whether it's students, parents, or some community members. But what would you like to tell them? What would you like them to know? What would you like to share? It can anything about your classroom, your teaching, the Hart District, your community. What would you like to share?
Well, I'd like to share that I passionately believe this incredible community of Santa Clarita. I think that the Hart District is integral to that community, and that the creation of this community and what this community has become is because very early on, I feel like there was so much emphasis put on education and on this Hart District and on treating teachers like professionals. That was my big aha moment when I first came to this district. I was so impressed with how teachers were respected in this community. And I think that goes hand in hand with the community that we see around us.
Yeah.
And I think right now it's a little crazy with, there's worries about education and whatnot. And I have a friend who once said to me recently, I wish more teachers were like you, Casey. And I said, they are. They're better than me. Like, these teachers are incredible. And what we do every day is we go in and we just try to really make our community better. I think that's what it boils down to. I'm trying to help every kid be a better thinker and speaker and writer because I want to help them become a better son or daughter or friend or spouse or colleague. And really that comes down to being a better member of the community.
Yeah.
That's what I think we're all about.
You know what I think is unique about the Hart District, also our staff, is that I forget the percentage, but it's by far the majority that actually live in our community. I mean, they're invested in the community. Many of them went to school in our schools and are back. Children have gone to our schools, and so I think that is an added investment that you can really see come out in the classrooms and hearing both of you talk today as well. Jim, what about you? What would you like to share?
I'll kind of build on that a little bit. So my son is 27, my daughter's 26. Both came out of Saugus High School in Arroyo Seco, the Hart District. And I like to remind parents as often as possible that it's the hardest thing I ever did. It's so humbling to raise a young man and a woman. And I think it's important we tell people that this is not going to be easy. I look at like the power graph. You know, when your kid's 3, you can control their diet and their friends and their clothes. But by the time they're 12, 13, 17, the parent, the coach, the teacher, the advisor has only influence. You have marginal power, if at all. So we really then just become a support staff. And I think the idea of sharing that with the community, because I think that was kind of your question, like what one thing would I tell people? I think I try to tell that to parents. That's how I start parent meetings off. Like, I understand how hard it is. I'm not on a pedestal. I'm in the salt mines. And when I say that raising a son, raising a daughter was the hardest, most humbling thing I've ever done, I hope that connects with them in their state of frustration, when the voices rise, when you feel let down by your kid. A lot of that is because they need more coaching and we need more patience. And I don't want to be judged at my worst. And I think it's important we not judge parents and the community at you know, when they're not at their best. So I think the message is this is hard. And it's not just, well, I got them through kindergarten and now they're into whatever junior high, I can back off. Nothing's further from the truth. We need to be there for them, keep that bar high and let them know we're there for them. And that parent, that coach, that whole network of support, sometimes it's physical, like, hey, do you need a tutor? Do you need a new desk? Do you have a quiet place to study? Because a lot of our students don't. And then sometimes it's more emotional about, you know, it's okay to say this is hard. It's supposed to be hard. And so it's those kind of conversations with parents that I think we need to have. I don't want to sell it as like, well, we need to brainwash the community so they're on board with us. It's more of team up with them and admit this is a gargantuan task to move a young person closer to their potential. And it's through content, it's through athletics, it's through clubs and career activities. But ultimately, exactly. But ultimately, and I think the district, the motto, if that's what it is, of being opportunity ready is what we're talking about there. That some of these kids are going to have careers that don't even exist yet. And many of them, it's going to bounce back and forth as they move around. And so we need them thirsty for challenge. And that's exhausting as a parent, especially if, and I don't know about you two, but sometimes your own kids don't take your wisdom. So we need that team experience because they'll listen to the bus driver more than us.
So true. It's so true.
So that would be my message. This is hard. Let's work together. There's going to be some painful struggles, but the most important thing isn't Billy now. It's Billy when he's 25 and 35. And that's how we should be judged, I think.
And we all have good intentions. Parents, obviously, I, being a parent too, you're emotional with your own children. And so, you know, we just had this conversation the other day in the office that, you know, looking back, I might have done things a little differently, but I did the best I could at the time. And I think, you know, that is, you know, the kind of the attitude we have to have and team up. I love that.
And as educators, counselors, administrators, coaches, and Casey hit on this earlier of getting to know his students, what challenges is that kid facing? It's not, oh, you're late for class, here's the consequence. Question one might be is, why are you?
What's the root?
What is the disease that led to this symptom? And how can we help you treat that? And sometimes they're screwing around, but other times, like, well, mom has cancer. I have to take my little sister to elementary school, so I'm going to be tardy. So now the problem isn't the tardy. It's, all right, well, we should communicate. You know, how can we help you with that? And that's that camaraderie, I think, that we need to develop. And I don't know if they're teaching that at, you know, the credential programs and stuff like that. That's something we need to mentor.
Yeah, absolutely. And the getting to know the student, I think that's the key. I mean, I remember back in elementary school, the teachers, they knew everything about us and still do.
I always tell my students, I don't know how to teach people I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to work to get to know you.
It's important. Well, I have a couple of questions that I hope if we get to do another podcast, we're hoping this will be the first of many to ask a few questions to everybody and to see where it goes. So I've got a couple here for you, and then we have a rapid fire. This is not rapid fire. I've just a legitimate one or two last questions here, and I'll say them both, and then we'll kind of go back and forth on each of them. But it's going to be, what is one thing you appreciate about the Hart District? Either you could take that as a teacher or as a parent, or however you want to take it. And what is something the Hart District to do better to serve our students and community? Either start up, stop doing, or do more of. So we've got what's something you appreciate and something that maybe we could retool. So we'll start with appreciate. So I feel good for a minute.
I would say I appreciate my colleagues. The Hart District is what it is because of the people that are in it, and the teachers that I work with just impress me every single day with their professionalism and their dedication. The teachers in the Hart District are what I'm so appreciative of, both as a colleague but also as a parent, because my two boys also went through Norte and Valencia, and it was incredible for them. That's what I'm most appreciative of.
Me too. I'm with you on that.
So I'll build on that and just twist it a little bit. I actually feel sorry for people who work in the district who've only taught there or worked there, because I don't think they have the perspective necessarily of how fantastic it is. And I feel the same way about Saugus High School. It's such a special place that people who've only worked there as for their profession, they don't understand it. And this is just my biased view, of course, of like, wow, this is phenomenal. Yeah. And of course, we have our issues and challenges, which I think you're going to get to, but it is just a special place. And I like to say I crave Mondays. I still can't wait to get back to work Mondays. And it has to do with that community, that student body, and as Casey said, the staff.
Yeah, that's a really good point there too, because it's true. You have a little perspective when you're out of it and then you're in it. You can really see how unique and special it is.
Yeah, we have bad days or challenges, if you want to put it that way. But if you think the grass is greener elsewhere, be very careful, because it's a very special community and very special people.
It is. All right, we do have some work though, so I'll throw that out there now.
I mean, I guess I would say lean in even more on the CTE, because I do, and I think also that we need to think and retool, what a degree is going to look like going forward in the age of AI, because I do worry that the traditional school model, we have kids that, we saw what happened when we gave kids cell phones without any kind of oversight and thought, oh, I'm sure it's fine. And I worry that the same thing's happening with AI right now. So as much as I'm all about AI in the positive lens, I'm also very worried about it. I'm worried about kids that are just cheating their way through high school because of classes that are basically grades are dependent upon homework. And so they're just AI in it at home. So I think that's something we really got to quickly retool. And but I also think, like you said, they're going to be doing jobs we don't even know exist anymore. I got to meet with this billionaire guy, and I said, what's going to go first in the age of AI? And he said, radiologists, which I thought, really? He goes, oh, they're gone. We just did a study with MIT and all this kind of stuff. And I then read that study, and it is interesting. And so I do think that we've got to start, and I think we are, though. I think we got the AI task force, and I think we're thinking about these things, and I think we're thinking about them in ways that I don't see a lot of other districts doing. There's a little more of a head in the sand in some other districts. So I think we do have to kind of rethink what we're doing. I think the CTE is the way to go. Yeah. I think we can lean into ways. I think that the trades are going to be so important going forward. And also people first stuff. I mean, one of my analogies is that AI is like Spock, right? But you always need a Captain Kirk. So even though you're gonna have this AI over here kind of giving you information, Captain Kirk still got to say, I don't care if it's a logical Spock, we're doing it. That engineering, that creativity, I don't think that's going anywhere. And so I think that's, we got to lean in on that.
That's good. I'd love to say we're getting ahead on AI, but we're not, but we're trying to catch up.
Yeah, and it'll be like that. But I do think though, we're, to the families that are listening right now, like, no, the Hart District is way ahead of the curve on this, I would argue, compared to what I've seen from a lot of other districts and states, especially talking to other state teachers. I mean, it's like, it's kind of, we're really doing an impressive job.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
You made that kind of into a positive. I like that.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate
More to do, I guess. Right?
There is more.
So I'll build on the CTE concept and just go really big and just call it dreams.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we have something that absolutely has to demand our focus as parents, as the community, and the staff in the district, I have two. And one is these kids need to be tough. And the second is they need to either have a dream, or probably more appropriate, they need to be conditioned on how to constantly be seeking a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the CTE path is one that most or all should be exposed to. But it's the bigger question when you sit down with a 12 or 18-year-old and you ask, if you could wave a magic wand 10 years from now, what would you be doing? And if they look at you with that glazed look, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to be intervening intentionally with determination to create that. And interestingly enough, with Casey's fascination with AI, I'm wondering if the next big district project needs to be, can we get AI to create a fabulous assessment that checks personality,
Mm-hmm.
skill level of things, as well as interests?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a debate between whether should you do something you love, something you're good at.
Yeah.
And so maybe our next challenge is in-house to create that assessment so that then we can actually start targeting kids and helping them find that dream,
Mm-hmm.
or just get in the habit of constantly looking for a new one and and adding skills to their toolbox in that sense. And then I go back to my other point about toughness. If a young person goes to COC or into the military or starts a business or goes right to a four-year school or a trade school, they're going to get kicked. At COC, they may struggle passing the math placement test. In the military, it could be a myriad of things. The question is, if we are we going to send them tough? Because if they're tough, it doesn't matter what gets in the way,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's financial, it could be bigotry, it could be a health issue. And suddenly, if they're not tough, suddenly they get sidetracked.
Yeah.
So what could we do? I don't think it's unique to the Hart District. I think that schools in general need to be focusing on helping kids find dreams and helping them get tougher. And that would make all of the rest of our instruction, our coaching programs, our clubs, that much easier. So maybe that's what would the kids say, big ask.
I love it. No, I mean, it's getting that focus and then the grit to keep, hey, you get knocked back, you keep going forward.
But if we're just teaching math, and I don't mean just math, I love math.
Yeah.
But if we're just fixated on in my construction class of, we're pulling wire, it's got to be part of, and we're getting tough, and we're developing skills and getting closer to finding those dreams.
Yeah.
And I think that just makes everything fall into place. So we need to roll up our sleeves for that.
Well, and I know we do have some surveys we do, but maybe that's the next project, Casey. We can come up with our own internal.
You got your brain going on that?
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking. I already got some ideas.
So you understand my 3 points there, that personality, that skill level, and those interests. And what would that give us? You talked about getting to know students. That's the ultimate inside look,
And then placement in a pathway that we have, like you're talking about the schedule, that they could capitalize
You
on
could
that.
cater each kid's education based on that current. And of course, if it's constantly growing and they're being reassessed, which it really should be, because it's not, does a 15-year-old know exactly what they want? But, as they go through certain things, they may decide, no, I don't want to be in, pharmacy, science, and or maybe what aspect of it. So we got to constantly revisit that.
But what a valuable lesson to learn at this point.
Exactly.
Versus third year in a major.
No kidding.
If you got to that point and going, I don't
Save
like
a little
this.
money that way too, right? Don't go into radiology, right?
Right, don't go to radiology.
And I would guess that if I'm a parent with, a third grader and they're hearing this conversation and we really jump on that, that would really make me feel good as a parent. Like, okay, these people are really caring about my kid's future. And I think even a lot of our social disagreements and things like that come from that insecurity is my standard of living, my kid's standard of living in jeopardy. This hopefully will give kids the tools to fight the good fight, regardless of, what situation they're thrown.
I'm glad I asked the question. I'm fired up now. I like the suggestions that came out of it.
Let's get to it.
It's awesome. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Well, now I've got just another minute. I've got some rapid fire questions I want to hit you with. Some are just kind of random and just to kind of get you know a little better, a good way to kind of finish up the conversation. And then one at the end that's related to our district. So, and we'll kind of, whoever starts, we'll go back and forth. So it's no,
All right.
let's start every time. So whoever can start the first time, can you tell us an accomplishment you're proud of?
It would be kind of echoing what you said about my being a father and my boys and watching them and struggling through all of that. And then now one's just graduated college and one's going to graduate next year.
Congratulations.
So that's probably it.
That's awesome.
It's the humbling nature of being that parent. You know, I can't be the only one who wonders, did I do a good enough job? Did I let them down? And that's heavy.
You're not the only.
And so every day is another fight to be there for them. And then can I be a part of that support team for other parents?
Okay, next. We'll start with you this time, Jim. 1 to 2 books you recommend.
Well, I'm an avid reader, and I don't use the Kindle. I'm old school because I read with a pen to annotate. So I will give 2 that I think could help the average parent with their kid going into the district. One is called Good Habits, Bad Habits. And I don't know if the author is from Stanford or Berkeley, I think one of the two. And it's really an unbelievable unpacking of the science of habit building. And if parents and coaches and advisors, counselors, et cetera, and teachers can master that and we can impart that, it just gives you levers of control. And then there's another one, I think Greg Harding, I might have his name wrong, called Stay Sane. If I were to pull together 30 books on teaching and coaching and raising kids, he was a sports counselor, I think, at one of the big Michigan universities. And he coached worked with Tom Brady and others. And his stories really impart that essential grit and learning and the experience of growth. So Good Habits, Bad Habits, and Stay Sane.
Stay Sane. In 2 days in a row now, somebody's recommended that book to me.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
It is possibly the best single book that pulls together many different topics. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I got to open it now.
Yeah, I'm going to read that.
Go ahead.
Mine would be 10 to 25, The New Science on Motivating Young People by Dave Yeager. He's from UT Austin. It's fascinating. Basically, between the ages of 10 to 25, it's not like a 10-year-old is like a 25-year-old, but their brains in that stage of their lives, they're craving relevance, they're craving status. And so there's a way to motivate that. But what he talks a lot about in the book is that we often demotivate by the way that we interact because we're treating them as
inadvertently,
like a 40-year-old would take criticism inadvertently. So it's a brilliant book. It's really interesting.
Okay.
Adopting a mentor mindset, which is a lot like a coaching mindset, holding high expectations, but also leading like a mentor. And then for a fun one, probably the best book I've read in the last few years is Hail Mary, Project Hail Mary, which is coming out as a movie with Ryan Gosling here soon. So you could read the book before the movie. Written by the Martian writer, the writer of The Martian.
Oh, okay.
Operation Hail Mary. It's very good.
Okay. I've got some lists for the summer now. Okay, Casey, do this time. An inspirational quote that.
I love the John Wooden quote, confidence comes from preparation. And I tell my students that a lot. Confidence comes from preparation.
Yes.
I'm going to cheat. I'm not going to use a quote. It's more of a Japanese term, Kaizen. Years ago, I was reading a book about education, and in it, the Japanese teacher in this international team introduced the concept. And I guess it translates roughly as like this unflinching dedication to improvement. And that was like rhetorical Velcro to me, that it just glommed on. And I've tried to impart that. And I teach it to swimmers and students and others. And a few years ago, I had hired one of my former swimmers as a assistant coach for a year or two. And I noticed on his arm there was something. I pulled his sleeve up. It was Kaizen. He had gotten a tattoo of Kaizen. And I said, what's this? It was Kaizen. And I go, I know what it is. Why is it on your arm? And he said, because when you talked to me about it, he was 17 or 18. And he goes, it really was impactful to me. Now, that was the first time that I know of that anything I ever said ended up on, ink on someone. But
you have had a lot of students, maybe.
Maybe. Right?
Now, this is wild because I had a student get a mythology tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
So look at that. That's the bar for California Teacher of the Year.
Yeah, somebody has to have a tattoo up here. One of your safe.
So Kaizen, improvement.
Okay.
I love that.
I love
Growth.
Okay. A life-changing hack you share with your own children. Start with you, Jim.
Humility, deep breath, reflect. And I guess it doubles back to that Kaizen, that let's stop competing with others and just compete with our potential.
Mm-hmm.
And that humbling concept totally takes that load off us. You know, when I start parent meetings, and I have a ton of them just to help kids, it's first question, why are we here? And they want to start with, well, my grade this. I'm like, no. And ultimately, I make them get to the point of, I'm not at my potential. Now, how can the rest of us help you get there? So it's that ability to really calmly reflect. I don't care how difficult your day was, how bad a job interview was, for that matter, how your marriage fell apart. How do I grow from this and move forward? And if a 12-year-old or 15-year-old is dealing with parents that are divorced or dad has cancer, it's that same concept. Like, how do I hit pause? How do I reflect? How do I take all my skills and my resources and not compare myself to the people next door, just grow from that and find joy and balance in the hours and days we have left.
Well, that's great for people who are on social media so much, isn't it? Yeah.
Mine probably saying my grandfather had, which was be a job big or small, do it well or not at all. And so to my boys and to and then my students, it's always about like, you know, live in the moment. It's a big thing in mythology, but live in the moment. And when an opportunity falls in front of you, it could be an adventure and you don't know. So give it your absolute all so that you will always be undefeated in that. And then you'll see what comes after that.
These are great. I'm actually gonna watch this so I can get these down, write these down now. 1 to 2 songs that make you come alive.
I have to go first. Squabble Up by Kendrick Lamar is probably my number 1 on my list right now. And then Ain't a Mountain High Enough.
Okay.
Is a go-to.
And I'm going to cheat again and go just for the genre of folk music that whether it's, you know, your Pete Seeger, your Woody Guthrie, or even some modern stuff. A lot of the recent rockers have started doing more folk music. It's the idea of what's buried in these lyrics that gives us frustration and dreams and hope. And I play a lot of music in my history classes because music is a byproduct of the culture of the time. So it's folk music. It's the lyrics of pain and hope.
Did you see the Bob Dylan movie?
I did. I thought it was fantastic.
That was good, wasn't it? Yeah. Favorite snack, an easy one.
Well, I'm torn because I'm big on trying to be healthy. So on a Sunday, I cut a lot of fruits and vegetables. So I have them all week. And from the good habits, bad habits, you want them front and center in your fridge and all that. So I balance that with, and I'm also just a huge fan of chocolate. So I'll grab that chocolate bar when I need the kick. But so I try to find the balance. And as you both probably know, as we get older, our body starts changing. We can't eat the whole pizza we did when we were 22 or whatever.
We can, but there's impact.
There you go. Yeah. So I try to find the healthy snacks, but chocolate is the Achilles heel.
Okay.
Skinny Pop microwave popcorn at night while I'm watching in Sports Center when I finally have everything's finally calmed down, maybe around 10 o'clock.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. All right. Now, Jim, I love that you brought it up a little while ago. Our phrase for the district is every student opportunity ready, meaning when they leave here, whatever comes in front of them, they're ready for it. And now we've expanded it to opportunity lives here, the experiences they get in our district. So kind of having that in mind, any advice that you have for students and parents to make sure students are truly opportunity ready when they leave our high schools?
Yeah, maybe I already touched on this, but it's the idea of explaining to parents and kids that you need to get out of your comfort zone. Don't take Spanish because the UCs are requiring it or whatever the language is. Take it because it opens you up to this great language and culture, and it's challenging. And like music, it makes our mind think differently. It gives us more empathy. It gives more skills. Who knows if you're hired at Best Buy and suddenly because you can speak Spanish, suddenly you're taking their phone calls or you're helping certain customers find certain things. You just never know what skill will open a door for you. A quick story, my son played tuba both in high school and up at UC Davis. And when he finished his engineering degree, he was in multiple interviews. And at one, he was wearing a tuba tie pin that I had given him as a gift. Just so happened a few of the engineers, these rocket scientists out in Mojave, had played tuba, and it led to a conversation that suddenly led to them taking him out to lunch and ultimately a job offer. He didn't take it, but it was just the idea of you have no idea what will get you there. And it's real easy to say, tuba's heavy, I'll do the flute.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just another metaphor for walk into the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe the best way for me to end that is, if you're frustrated in the heat trying to climb a steep mountain, don't find the shortcut. Learn to love climbing steep mountains in the heat. Don't complain that you're in the rain. Learn how to dance in the rain. So that's the message: to truly be opportunity ready, get tough, welcome challenge, constantly retool, and reflect on failure. If you don't get offered a job, put your hand out, thank them for the interview, tell them, I'm so glad you found the perfect person. Hey, are there 3 things you'd suggest for me if I were to re-interview a year from now? Now you just turned a loss into a lesson.
Yeah.
And we've got to impart that to make people opportunity ready.
Yeah, that's so good, because I mean, everything impacts you and helps you in the future. And it's kind of like what you said about do everything you can, the best that you can, because that is going to help you somewhere. Even what you said after an interview, maybe that person doesn't take the job, and maybe a year from now there's another thing, and they remember you by how you handle difficulties.
Or next week,
Right.
if there's another opening, or the
Absolutely.
person they offer the job
Yeah.
to pulls out, as opposed to slamming your hand on the table and say, well, you're missing out on the best person.
Yeah,
Not so good.
yeah,
Again, turn the lesson or the loss into a lesson.
absolutely. Casey.
Yeah, I guess 2 quick things. Like,
Yeah.
I do think the AI, should talk about the AI a little bit, because I think we're in this emerging circumstance here where there is going to be a very, very close reality here where if you don't understand how to use AI, it's literally the question they're asking in every interview: how do you use AI? My son the other day was like, hey, Dad, I want you to make me a website since you know how to do this stuff. And I said, no, I'm going to buy you a $20 subscription to Claude Code. How am I going to learn to do Claude Code? I'm like, you're going to go ask ChatGPT, how do I do Claude Code?
You did coding.
And if you don't know how to do it, yeah, you're going to take a screenshot of wherever you're stuck and give it to ChatGPT and say, now what do I do? And it took him a day and a half, and he writes me, he's like, I made a website. This is nuts.
That, I'm sure.
And he felt great. And I said, now in any interview you walk in and they say, how do you use AI? And instead of just other people saying they prompt, you're going to be like, well, I could actually code a website if you wanted me to. But I think that just to explore it and unlock what you could create with it.
Yeah.
I think number one. But then another thing I want to touch on is that I saw this thing recently. They did a study on who are the most popular kids in high school, and they're not the kids with the most followers, and they're not the kids that are necessarily the star quarterback. It was the kid that knew the most names of everyone else on campus, who everyone else said was the nicest. And so I think it's a funny thing we live in where there's this, oh, got to be cool. But really it's just being nice and kind and leading. Yeah, it's that connection piece. And it's the kid who walks across campus and says hi to people that becomes the one. And I think in what I've seen in all my friends in the business world, it's the same thing. You know, movies like Wolf of Wall Street make us think you got to be cutthroat. But it isn't. It's people that want to work with other people. Who I like that person. Let's promote that person. They're a good person. They're kind. They're generous.
They can work together.
Yeah. So I think, especially the kids might be listening, like just err on being kind. Be kind and be generous and be that friend for other people. And you'll always know that you're doing the right thing. But ironically, it's become self-serving in a way because you will actually become more well-known and you're going to be more successful because people will value you as a person because you are a good person.
Good. I love that. That's all the questions I have. Is there anything that you didn't get a chance to say that I didn't ask that you'd like to share before we close up?
It's just been an honor to get to know Jim through this whole process, and it's just been phenomenal. And I know we're going to keep working on stuff. We got a whole plan to do a lot more stuff.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, and the feeling's mutual. And I just want to extend gratitude to you. I mean, I know I got to serve your family when your kids were going through the school, but it is really a pleasure to work with people who want to move the district, move the needle, and seek input from people in the salt mines, in the trenches, so to speak. And it makes me keep craving those Mondays.
Good. Well, I love talking to you and everybody, and really, always trying to get better. It gets me going every Monday too. I enjoy it still. So I did want to thank a couple people before we close out. We are at the Signal studio here, and I want to thank Richard Budman and the Signal for allowing us to use this fantastic studio today, and also our Director of Communications and Community Support, Debbie Dunn, who arranged everything for us. So thank you both for everything you do for your students, our district, the whole community, and for joining me today. It was really great talking to both of you in this setting. Thank you so much, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Heart of the Matter.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of Heart of the Matter. Remember, whether in the classroom or beyond graduation, we're working together to ensure every student is opportunity ready. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe so you'll never miss an update. You can find more stories and district news at heartdistrict.org or follow us on social media. Thank you for being a part of our One Heart community. We'll see you next time.